Hi, welcome to the podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start conversation on Unit 4 Thinkers on Education. And our thinker is Paolo Ferreira, 1921 to 1997. Paulo Douglas Neves Ferreira was born to the Catholic middle class family in Reykjavik, in the capital of northeastern province in Brazil. His father was a military officer who brought up his children with the both authority and understanding. Freire first received education in the traditional Catholic way from his mother. The family lived in one of the most impoverished regions of the nation and often encountered difficulty in making both ends and meet. His parents did, however, try hard to maintain the standard of living that characterized the middle class families of that time. Paulo Freire studied law, following which he taught Portuguese language in a secondary school in Brazil. He was served as a trade union lawyer. He would inform trade union members on legal matters. Ferreira was engaged in a wide variety of activities that included teaching a language course and lecturing on legal matters to trade union workers. The experience of dealing and with illiteracy among Brazilian poor peasants and workers moved him. He came to realize that educational policies and practices had far reaching implications. In 1989, Ferreira was appointed Secretary of Education. He took this opportunity to initiate several programs for educating the adult and recasting the curriculum. According to Ferreira, as society becomes extensively technology oriented with emphasis on specialization, people become increasingly passive, dehumanized, and fearful. While mass production of commodities does call for extensive participation of people, it reduces their capacity for critical assessment. The way out then is not to reject the use of machine, but to humanize people, to bring them out of the alienation of routine, of repeating things bureaucratically and taking lives into their own hands at their own risk and responsibility and exercising control. Ferreira was once asked how he thought it was possible to talk about the cultural appropriation of the dominant culture by the dominated people. He replied that those who dominate seek to lull the self consciousness of those they dominate and instill in them a sense of inferiority about their own culture. When the dominated people come to realize the strategy of the dominators, they mobilize themselves with the tremendous rigor. They unite, grow, struggle to overthrow the indoctrination and liberate themselves. Those who champion the cause of the liberation are unfortunately gripped by the banking concept of education, because of which they are not able to understand its dehumanizing influence. To understand Ferreira's banking concept of the education, The seekers of liberation need to adopt the concept of people as conscious beings. This consists of devising learning situations based on dialogical relations in which the duality between the teacher as the repository of knowledge and the student as completely ignorant and bereft of knowledge is snapped. Teaching and learning then becomes a two-way process in which teachers and students engage on equal terms. More importantly, he invited participation of the community in educational programs that led to decentralization of control and democratization of schools. Which came out clearly was the thirst on praxis in education that refers to developing a sense of critical reflexive action and critical reflection based on action. This assumes greater relevance to the light of the fact that Ferreira believed that the capitalist societies might be identified with oppression that pervades all social relations and social processes, including education. More specifically, Brazil was plagued with intense political, social, and economic inequalities. The stark opposition between the affluent and the impoverished, the oppressor and the oppressed, deeply influenced Ferreira's thought. The oppressed or the dispossessed were deliberately kept submerged in ignorance and in situations that would curtail their critical awareness and active response to their condition of social, economic, and political domination by the oppressors. Ferreira described this as the culture of silence. He believed that those who are oppressed, dispossessed, and the marginalized tend to remain ignorant and lethargic because of the overpowering social, economic, and political domination. The educational system supports and maintains the domination. He came to realize that the then current system of education would continue to perpetuate the divide. The alternative before him was to present a conception of education in which the culture, knowledge, and social, economic, and political condition of the oppressed were in the forefront. His book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, was born out of the urge to empower the oppressed through education. He believed that often the process of education gets reduced to deposition of knowledge by the teachers in the students who patiently receive, memorize, and repeat from the deposits. This is the banking concept of education proposed by Ferreira. In the banking concept of education, teachers treat themselves as knowledgeable and bestow the gift of knowledge to the students whom they treat as completely ignorant. Evidently, such students are given to adapting to the social situation in whatever form it appears before them. The solution lies in humanizing pedagogy, in which a permanent dialogue between the revolutionary leadership and the oppressed is established. Here, the critical consciousness and the awareness of students are ignited. The oppressed are encouraged to transform their destiny by way of struggle for their liberation. Faraday's basic assumption was that man's ontological vocation is to be a subject which acts upon and transforms his world, and in so doing moves toward ever new possibilities of a fuller and richer life individually and collectively. Here, world may be understood as consisting of dynamic and ever changing social order. It is hence possible to look at the world critically with the ambition to overthrow the oppression. What is required, however, is appropriate outlook and training, which education can impart. When an illiterate peasant or oppressed sections of society are initiated into critical thinking and the process of transformation, it takes upon itself the task of changing the oppressive structures of society. Ferreira believed that the education either serves as an instrument that integrates the younger generation into the existing social system and makes them conform to it, or else it serves as an instrument through which freedom is achieved. He accepted that those who profess the notion of freedom through education are often influenced by the banking concept and give into its dehumanizing power. Unfortunately, they use this very instrument of alienation in an effort to liberate the masses. They tend to brand those who challenge them on their count as innocent, dreamer, or reactionary. The truly committed have to reject the banking concept of education in its entirety. Instead of furthering the goal of deposit making in education, they have to pursue problem posing education, that is, posing of the problems of people in their relation with the world, that would put teacher and student contradiction to rest, so that the teacher of the student and the student of the teacher cease to exist. New terminology, for example, teacher student and student teacher, emerges, in which authority is on the side of freedom, not against it. People teach each other. The process is mediated by the world, by cognizable objects. Here we wind up this conversation, and thank you so much for choosing this podcast.